They doubted her work. But one signature revealed a name no one dared forget.
She stepped in to fix the engine. Too old. No badge, no rank. The engineers laughed. The SEAL crew rolled their eyes until the captain caught sight of the signature mark etched into her brass rod, a mark no one had seen in over a decade. And that's when everything changed. Because she wasn't just a mechanic. She was the last engineer from a unit that was never supposed to exist. Want to know why the SEAL captain stood frozen in silence? Drop a comment below telling us where in the world you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe. We upload daily at the same time. Now, back to the story. The morning fog was still burning off the San Diego harbor when the 4th engineering team walked out of Base 6 with that look. You know the one. The 1,000-yard stare of professionals who just hit a wall they couldn't climb, tunnel, or blow through. Systems dead past stage 2. One of them muttered as he passed the mission ops console, not bothering to look up from his tablet. Nothing but static. Behind him, his partner shook his head. Thermal's clean, magnetics clean, but the damn thing won't hold compression past idle. Inside the hangar, the frustration was thick enough to taste. Salt air mixed with engine grease and the particular smell of expensive equipment that wasn't cooperating. A 4,000-ton SEAL delivery vessel sat docked just off the pier, her hull still dripping from sea trials that had ended badly, real badly. The propulsion array had chosen the worst possible moment to give up, 36 hours before a mission that couldn't be delayed. 1 minute, the diagnostic panel was showing green across the board. The next, it was darker than a politician's promises. Primary gas turbine wouldn't spin past cold idle without choking itself to death. Logic boards were acting like they'd never seen electricity before. Captain Dean Hargrove stood at the edge of the console table, scanning the same report for the 6th time. His jaw worked like he was chewing nails. Beside him, a stack of failure reports grew thicker by the hour. Each one a different theory, each one proven wrong. "They're telling me it's normal wear," he said to nobody in particular. Commander Wilcox shifted beside him, pulling up another diagnostic screen. "That's what all 4 teams said. Henderson's crew thinks it's a software issue. Martinez blamed the fuel mixture. Thompson's team swears it's electromagnetic interference. 900 runtime hours." Hargrove's voice carried the kind of edge that made junior officers check their shoelaces. "You call that normal wear?" "Sir," a young technician approached hesitantly, tablet in hand. "We've got the Nashville team requesting permission to swap out the entire propulsion module. They can have a replacement here by 1800 hours. Hargrove looked up sharply. "How long for the swap?" 14 hours minimum, maybe 18 if we hit complications. That puts us past mission window." Hargrove's voice went flat. "Mission scrubs, if this boat isn't ready by 2100 tomorrow." The buzz of cooling fans filled the silence. Across the hangar, young techs moved with the restless energy of people who'd run out of ideas but couldn't stop working, checking systems they'd already checked, running diagnostics that kept giving them the same non-answers. Everyone was operating on coffee fumes and stubborn pride. A senior petty officer approached with another clipboard. "Sir, we've got 2 more teams requesting access, one from Norfolk, another from the contractor pool. How long before they can be here?" "Norfolk's 8 hours out. Contractors," he shrugged. "Who knows what we'll get." "This boat launches tomorrow night," Hargrove said, his voice carrying across the bay. "Engine works or it doesn't. If it fails during insertion, we don't just lose hardware, we lose people." Near the diagnostic station, a pale electrician who couldn't have been older than 25 shook his head at his terminal. "Need a damn magician to fix this thing," he muttered. From somewhere behind the equipment racks, an older voice drifted over, calm, almost amused. "Funny you should mention that." They turned. Petty Officer Ramon Wells was leaning against a tool chest, nursing coffee from a dented metal cup that had probably seen more deployments than most of the techs in the room. Salt and pepper beard, hands that looked like they'd been arguing with machinery for decades. Hargrove raised an eyebrow. "You got something, Wells?" Wells took another sip, considering. Maybe. Long time ago I was running offshore support out of Bahrain. Had a patrol craft come in dead in the water. Engine was fried, electronics were scrambled, and we had 3 teams of experts scratching their heads for 2 days. And Navy brought in a civilian contractor, female, former fleet engineer. She listened to that dead engine for maybe an hour, then crawled inside with nothing but a flashlight and a socket wrench. Don't tell me. She fixed it with duct tape and wishful thinking? Wells smiled. 4 hours, had it purring like a kitten. Thing ran better than it had since commissioning. But here's the weird part. After she finished, she marked something inside the housing. Never said what it was. Captain Hargrove's expression shifted from skeptical to interested. What's her name? Maya Keene. The name didn't ring any bells for Wilcox, but Wells nodded to himself like he was remembering something carved in stone. She's still around? Far as I know, runs a marine repair shop up near Coronado. Keeps to herself, mostly. Doesn't take Navy contracts anymore. Word is she had some kind of falling out with command years back. Hargrove didn't hesitate. Get someone down there. Sir, she's not exactly the type to jump when headquarters calls. Last I heard, she turned down 3 different contractor offers. Then don't call. Send someone in person. Tell her it's engine code Bravo 57. Wells straightened slightly. She'll know what that means. If she's who I think she is, yeah, she'll know. The repair shop sat wedged between a bait store and a surf shop that had seen better decades. Weathered aluminum siding, windows clouded with salt spray, and a hand-painted sign that simply read, Marine Engine Repair in faded black letters. The kind of place you'd drive past 100 times without noticing. Inside, the air carried the honest smell of diesel fuel, motor oil, and work. A commercial fishing boat was propped up on steel blocks, its engine spread across a workbench in carefully organized pieces. Jazz played softly from a radio that looked older than the building itself. Maya Keene was crouched beside the crankcase, adjusting a bolt with the kind of precision that comes from 30 years of practice. Gray streaked through brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Coveralls that bore no patches, no logos. Just the honest stains of someone who fixed things for a living. She didn't look up when the young sailor stepped through the door. Excuse me, ma'am? Her hands never stopped moving. I was told to find you. Engine failure on a seal boat. Code Bravo 57. That got her attention. She paused, tool still in hand, and something shifted in her posture. The code meant something important. What vessel? The sailor checked his notes. Eseva 112. Out of San Diego. Maya set down her wrench and stood slowly, wiping her hands on a rag that had seen better years. Her eyes were the color of sea glass, steady and measuring. How many teams have looked at it? 4, ma'am. Maybe 5 by now. And they sent you to find me. It wasn't a question. Yes, ma'am. Captain Hargrove said you would understand what Bravo 57 means. Maya was quiet for a long moment, studying the young sailor's face. Then she walked to a corner cabinet and pulled out a worn canvas bag that looked like it had traveled the world twice. Get in the truck. The gate guard barely glanced up from his paperwork when they pulled up to the checkpoint. ID, he said automatically. The sailor handed over his card. She's with me. Captain Hargrove's authorization. The guard took one look at Maya. Civilian clothes, no visible credentials, tool bag slung over her shoulder, and frowned. She doesn't have base access. She doesn't need it, the sailor replied. Captain's orders. The guard picked up his phone, had a brief conversation that Maya couldn't hear, then waved them through with obvious reluctance. They walked past the first hangar, where a team of SEALs was running dive prep, their laughter carrying on the salt air. One of them glanced up as Maya passed, taking in her weathered coveralls and practical boots. Someone's grandmother get lost? He said, not particularly quietly. His buddy grinned. Maybe she's here to fix the coffee machine. Maya kept walking. She'd heard worse. Engineering Bay 2 was a different world from the relaxed atmosphere outside. Here, tension hung in the air like a fog bank. Banks of diagnostic equipment lined the walls, their screens flickering with data that nobody seemed able to interpret. A massive gantry crane loomed over the open engine housing, and scattered around it were tools, parts, and the accumulated frustration of multiple failed repair attempts. Chief Tech Granger spotted her immediately. Tall, fit, with prematurely gray hair, and the kind of confidence that hadn't been tested by anything harder than training scenarios. He walked over like a man solving a problem that hadn't been properly explained to him. "You the civilian contractor?" He didn't offer his hand. Maya Keene. "Chief Granger, this is a restricted workspace. Who cleared you?" "Captain Hargrove." He looked her up and down. Coveralls, work boots, bag that had seen better years. "Right. The miracle worker who was going to fix this with good intentions and elbow grease." Maya set her bag down beside the diagnostic console. "I don't need intentions, just your torque specifications. This isn't some weekend boat project, lady. We're talking about a $40 million propulsion system, state-of-the-art engineering. You can't just walk in here with a toolbox and expect... How many hours have you spent on it?" The question caught him off guard. "Excuse me? Your team. How many man-hours on this engine?" Granger straightened up. "We've been working around the clock, 80 hours, maybe 90. And you're no closer to a solution than when you started." The comment drew attention from across the bay. A few SEAL techs turned to watch, and one leaned toward his partner. They really pulled someone out of retirement for this? Granger stepped closer, trying to establish dominance. Through proximity. "You don't have clearance, you don't have credentials, you don't have anything that gives you authority over this repair." Maya met his eyes without blinking. "Neither do you, not where it matters." Before Granger could respond, the bay doors slid open and Captain Hargrove walked in. He took one look at the standoff and headed straight for Maya. "You made good time." Granger looked like someone had just told him gravity was optional. "Sir, you can't be serious about this. She's here under my direct authorization. Whatever she needs, you provide it. Sir, she's not even wearing a security badge. She doesn't need one." Maya was already moving, circling the exposed engine like a detective examining a crime scene. Her eyes didn't dart around frantically like the other techs. They lingered, taking in details that others had missed. A scorched connector here, an over-tightened bolt there, the subtle signs that told a story only she knew how to read. She stopped at the diagnostic terminal and scrolled through the error logs, page after page of failed tests, inconclusive results, and theories that had led nowhere. "You're looking in the wrong place," she said without turning around. Granger bristled. "We've checked every system, run diagnostics on every component, thermal imaging, magnetic resonance, acoustic analysis, and found nothing because you're looking for the wrong kind of failure." "What's that supposed to mean?" Maya looked back at the sailor who'd brought her. "Fire it up." "Absolutely not," Granger stepped forward. "We've had cascading failures throughout the compression system. You want to melt the housing just to satisfy some amateur theory?" Maya turned to face him fully. "If it's just a theory, you've got nothing to worry about." Captain Hargrove nodded to the tech at the console. "Do it." The engine came to life with a shudder, fighting its way through the startup sequence like an old man climbing stairs. Maya stepped closer, her eyes closed, head tilted slightly to one side. The other techs watched in puzzled silence as she simply stood there, listening. No instruments, no readouts, just old-fashioned attention. After 30 seconds, she said, "There!" "There what?" Granger demanded. "Hear that harmonic shift? It's running a quarter tone sharp. Something's flexing under load that shouldn't be." Granger shook his head. "That could be a dozen different things. Temperature variance, bearing tolerance, sensor drift. It's mechanical, and it's getting worse." She was right. As they watched where the engine's rhythm began to waver, the steady hum developing an irregular stutter that made everyone in the bay nervous. "Shut it down," Maya said quietly. The tech at the console looked to Hargrove, who nodded. The engine wound down with a mechanical sigh. You can't diagnose precision engineering by ear, Granger said. This isn't some fishing boat engine. Maya walked to the engine mount and tapped her knuckle against a specific panel. This coupling here. It's been vibrating loose for weeks. Your diagnostic equipment can't catch it because it only happens under full rotational stress. That's impossible. Your stress analysis assumes normal operating parameters, but someone modified this coupling, changed the metallurgy. It's flexing in ways your computers don't expect. She reached into her bag and pulled out a tool that made everyone in the room stop talking. It was a brass rod, about 8 inches long, worn smooth on one end with a rubber grip on the other. Handmade. Ancient by Navy standards. I need quiet, she said. And somehow, in a room full of alpha personalities and competing egos, everyone obeyed. Maya pressed the brass rod against the engine casing and placed her other end against her ear. Not for show, not to prove a point. She was listening to the machine's heartbeat, reading vibrations like a cardiologist reading an EKG. She moved along the housing with deliberate precision, pausing at each mounting point, each junction, each place where stress and heat and thousands of hours of operation left their mark. Her free hand traced the vibration paths without touching, following the engine's story through her fingertips. Here, she said finally, pointing to a junction beneath the intake manifold, and here, 2 different resonance patterns that are interfering with each other. She looked up at Granger. Pull that panel. Granger looked incredulous. The housing? We've scoped that section 3 times with thermal imaging and magnetic stress analysis. Then once more won't hurt. Captain Hargrove gave a slight nod, and a nearby tech stepped forward with a torque driver. The panel came away to reveal a maze of couplings, feed lines, and rotational linkages packed tight as a ship's rigging. Maya aimed her flashlight into the cavity and leaned in. Coupling 22B, look at the finish. Granger peered over her shoulder and his expression changed. The coupling showed heat distortion, not cracked, not obviously failed, but warped in a way that would only matter under full rotational stress. Nearly invisible when cold, deadly at combat power. But there was something else. Scratched into the metal surface, barely visible, were what looked like tool marks. Deliberate modifications. That's impossible, he muttered. Our thermal diagnostics would have caught this. Not if you're only running them at idle. This doesn't miss a line until you hit full RPM load, and someone's been working on this coupling. See these marks? That's hand modification. Someone changed the stress distribution pattern. Maya reached into her tool pouch and pulled out a microfiber cloth. A few careful wipes revealed something that made Captain Hargrove lean in closer. Etched into the coupling's surface, almost too faint to see, was a small triangular mark, 3 tiny stars beneath it, hand-carved, not machine-stamped. Hargrove's breath caught. His eyes moved from the coupling to the brass rod in Maya's hand, where the same triangular symbol was etched near the base. That's a Vanguard signature, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Granger looked confused. A what? Vanguard Task Unit 9, Naval Engineering Black Division. Hargrove's voice carried the weight of classified history. Shadow R&D program out of Kitsap. Shut down over a decade ago. Personnel records were sealed. He looked at Maya with new understanding. You were on that team. Maya secured the coupling and stood, brushing her hands off on her coveralls. She didn't confirm or deny. Didn't need to. The modification was done by someone who knew this system intimately, she said quietly. Someone who understood that this particular coupling would develop harmonic stress under combat load conditions. They were trying to compensate for a design flaw that wouldn't show up in normal testing. But why not report it through its proper channels? One of the younger techs asked. Maya looked at him with something that might have been sympathy. Because sometimes proper channels don't want to hear about problems that would delay deployment schedules. Granger stepped forward. Sir, that program doesn't exist in any official records. I don't need records, Hargrove cut him off. I can recognize that mark. He turned to address the entire bay. Everyone was watching now, techs, officers, even the SEALs from the adjacent workspace. Stop all diagnostics. No more testing. This woman just identified a failure that 4 teams missed. Granger's mouth worked soundlessly. She's not even wearing a badge. She has the mark, Hargrove said with finality. That is her badge. The hangar fell absolutely silent except for the whisper of cooling fans and the distant sound of seabirds outside. Maya returned the brass rod to her bag and shouldered it again. I'll need replacement parts. Standard coupling won't work. You need the modified specifications. Where do we get those? Hargrove asked. I have them. Maya reached into her bag and pulled out a worn notebook, pages yellow with age. The proper metallurgy specs, the stress distribution calculations, everything your predecessor teams tried to fix but couldn't document officially. She opened the notebook, revealing pages of hand-drawn diagrams and technical specifications written in precise engineer's handwriting. This should have been standard from the beginning, she said. But budget constraints and timeline pressure led to compromises. The Vanguard team was brought in to make those compromises work in the field. Then Hargrove did something that made every person in that hangar straighten up. He came to attention and saluted her. Not the casual acknowledgement you'd give a fellow officer, but the crisp, held salute reserved for someone who'd earned it in ways that couldn't be written in service records. We'll follow your lead, ma'am. Maya didn't return the salute, but she nodded once, and the gesture carried more authority than all the rank insignia in the room. Captain Hargrove walked briskly to his office, closed the door, and activated his secure terminal. He bypassed 3 levels of clearance with codes he hadn't used in years, typing in access phrases that most people didn't know existed. The file that appeared was barely half a page long, with most of it redacted in thick black bars. Keen, Maya J status, retired, access, sealed, unit, Vanguard Task Unit 9, defunct, clearance, Shadow Level 3, authority verified. What wasn't redacted told a story that made Hargrove lean back in his chair, Senior Systems Integration Engineer on Project Covenant, the woman who'd solved harmonic instability problems that had stumped the entire Naval Research Laboratory. The testbed cruiser that never officially existed. The all-female engineering team that had revolutionized stealth vessel propulsion. The 3-star triangle wasn't just a mark. It was the calling card of an elite engineering corps. Only 6 had ever been etched. Maya Keen was the last one still breathing. He stood up and walked back to the bay, where Chief Granger was holding court with anyone who'd listen. I'm not saying she didn't help, Granger was saying, but we still need to follow standard operating procedures. Chief, Hargrove's voice cut through the conversation like a blade. Put down your tools. Everyone. The work stopped. Diagnostic screens went dark. The steady hum of activity died away. Granger stepped forward. Sir, this engine still needs full certification before stand down. The 2 words carried enough weight to stop a battleship. Hargrove looked around the bay at the assembled techs and engineers. You want to know what that brass rod is? It's a Vanguard signature tool. Custom made, hand etched. Only 6 were ever created. He paused, letting that sink in. This woman was Chief Integration Engineer on a classified project I can't name in mixed company. Her team solved propulsion problems that you study in advanced courses today. The sensor arrays you use, the dampening systems, the thermal management protocols, those are her designs. Dead silence. But sir, Granger tried again, she's not active duty. She doesn't have authorization. She doesn't need it. Hargrove's voice was flat as a deck plate. She has the mark. That's all the authorization she'll ever need. He turned to Maya and his tone softened slightly. Ma'am, I pulled your file. This fleet owes you more than we can ever repay. Maya stood quietly, waiting. From this moment forward, Hargrove announced to the room, Miss Keen has full operational oversight on this repair. If she says something moves, it moves. If she says shut it down, you shut it down. And if anyone questions her authority again, you can explain it to Naval Command when I write up how you delayed a mission-critical repair. Granger swallowed hard. Understood, sir. Good. Now watch her work. You might learn something. Hargrove stepped aside, and Maya moved past Granger with the calm confidence of someone who'd never needed permission to be excellent. The repair took 6 hours, not because the work was complicated, but because Maya insisted on teaching as she went. "The stress patterns you see here," she explained to a young technician as they worked together on the coupling replacement, "they're not random. Every vibration tells a story about how the metal is responding to load. You learn to read those stories. You can predict failures before they happen." She handed him her brass rod. "Try it. Press it against the mounting plate and listen." The young man looked uncertain, but he followed her instructions. His eyes widened as the tool transmitted vibrations he'd never noticed before. "I can feel the harmonic resonance," he said, wonder in his voice. "That's your engine talking to you. Most people never learn to listen." Chief Granger watched from a distance, his earlier hostility replaced by grudging respect. When Maya called for a specific torque setting, he provided it without argument. When she asked for a modified coupling from her personal stock, he helped install it without question. The transformation was subtle but complete. The woman he'd dismissed as an amateur had become the acknowledged expert in the room, and everyone, including him, was learning from her. "Why did you leave the Navy?" one of the techs asked during a break. Maya looked up from her work, considering the question. "Sometimes institutions forget that the mission matters more than the politics. When that happens, people like me become inconvenient." She didn't elaborate, and nobody pressed for details. The engine didn't just run, it sang. By the time Maya finished her final calibrations, every gauge was steady green. No anomalies, no fluctuations, no hesitation, just smooth, reliable power that would carry SEALs wherever they needed to go and bring them home again. But the real test came when she called for full power trials. "Bring it up to combat settings. She told the technician at the console. "All the way, don't hold back." The engine responded with a deep throaty roar that resonated through the hangar, but underneath the power was something else, perfect balance. The harmonic distortions that had plagued the system were gone, replaced by the smooth efficiency that the designers had originally intended. Maya ran the engine through every test profile in the book, then created a few of her own. Emergency power, rapid shutdown and restart, combat maneuvering loads. Each test confirmed what everyone in the bay could hear. This engine was better than new. The full engineering crew stood at respectful attention around the bay's perimeter, watching as Maya ran through her final checklist. She didn't bark orders or explain her process. She simply made minute adjustments by feel, tapped the readout display twice, and stepped back. "That's your engine," she said. "Your mission ready." Captain Hargrove approached. "We've got quarters prepared, mess halls open. I can arrange guest status if you're willing to stay through launch tomorrow." Maya was already wiping her hands on an old rag. "I'll walk back. It's 4 miles to the harbor." "I know." He didn't argue, just stepped aside as she shouldered her bag and headed for the exit. Chief Granger intercepted her near the bay doors, his earlier arrogance replaced by something approaching humility. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "how did you learn to hear engines like that?" Maya paused. "Machines don't lie. People do. Spend enough time listening to honest voices. You learn to hear the truth." She looked back at the young technician she'd been teaching. "Keep practicing with the rod, and remember, every engine has its own voice. Your job is to learn the language." Then she walked out into the fading sunlight, leaving behind a room full of people who just learned the difference between education and wisdom. Captain Hargrove stood with his XO, both watching her figure recede across the tarmac. "Make sure she's compensated," Hargrove said, "for the repair, for all the years we forgot she existed." As Maya walked down the pier toward the main gate, 3 SEALs working on fast boats noticed her passing. None had been introduced, none had been briefed, but something in her bearing, or maybe the way the engineering crew had watched her leave, told them everything they needed to know. One nodded as she passed, another straightened up. The third simply stepped back, not from fear, but from instinct. Maya kept walking. The sea breeze caught her hair, carrying the familiar smells of salt water and diesel fuel. Behind her, the ship she'd just saved hummed quietly at its mooring, ready for whatever mission tomorrow would bring. 12 hours later, that ship would slip its moorings and disappear into the Pacific darkness, carrying its crew to objectives that would never make the evening news. The engine Maya had repaired would run flawlessly through the entire operation, bringing everyone home safely. But Maya wouldn't know that. She was already back in her shop working on a fishing boat engine, jazz playing softly from the old radio. No one cheered. No one needed to. The work spoke for itself. Have you ever misjudged someone because they didn't look the part? What would you have done if you'd been in that hangar? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If this story reminded you that real expertise doesn't need credentials to prove itself, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about the quiet professionals who keep our world running. Share this with someone who knows what it's like to be underestimated, and don't go yet. Your next story is already waiting. Click that video and we'll see you tomorrow. Same time right here on Legacy Valor.